All right, so in alignment with the core competencies, I was doing 19 and 20 this week. Addiction core competency 19, understand the importance of self-awareness in one's personal, professional, and cultural life. And competency 20, understand the addiction professional's obligation to adhere to ethical and behavioral standards of conduct in the help and relationship. I wanted to focus on these two this week just because I think that part of it is sometimes these will be about common themes, common issues, common struggles that programs might be having. Sometimes it might just be like a new thing that we're going through. So any suggestions would always be appreciated too. I picked these two this week because it kind of just gets into ethical, and I thought it'd be a good time to revisit kind of professionalism, ethical and standards, boundaries, all that kind of stuff. Because that's always, I think in our settings, it can get hard and we get wore down because we have constant interaction with the clients. So it's kind of just a refresh on that stuff is always good. I believe Kelsey, you like my last boundary ones, right? Did big things for you at Scone?
Of course.
All right. So go ahead. Sorry. I was just teasing, Kelsey. What you got?
I wasn't saying anything.
All right.
Me either, because mine's on mute.
All right. That sounds rough too. All right. So with the competency 19, the attitude one needs to have in that is the openness to constructive supervision and a willingness to grow and change personally and professionally. Because the self-awareness, I mean, that can play into a lot of things. That can be personal biases. That can be kind of cultural views you might have, political opinions. I mean, it all comes in play. We all come from different backgrounds and whatnot. And hearing that sometimes it can, I don't want to say sting, but sometimes we get criticized or talk about things close to home. I mean, defense mechanisms kick up. So I think that competency 19 especially is just kind of having that openness to accept feedback. And if it don't apply, let it fly kind of thing. You know, I mean, just even me or your supervisors or anybody, it's not like we know you personally. We're making opinions and impressions based on what we're seeing. So, but if it's something that you can see within yourself, I think openness to look at that and grow from it, that's all we can ask for. Competency 20 is understand the addiction professional's obligation to adhere to ethical behavior standards of conduct in the help and relationship. The attitude involved be willingness to conduct oneself in accordance with the highest ethical standards and a willingness to comply with regulatory and professional expectations. Anybody want to take a shot out? Well, actually, I'll get into that in a second. So what is professionalism? What does ethical behavior standards mean? Anybody got anything with that? Schuster? Can I just call you out? You hear me?
I may not have heard the question.
What is professionalism and what does ethical and behavioral standards mean in our setting as a professional?
It means not crossing the boundaries with our clients. We, stay firm on the rules. We don't have dual relationships with clients, that type of stuff.
What about Facebook?
Yeah, no, we don't friend our clients. That would be creating a dual relationship with them.
It would be creating a dual. I only brought that up because I called you out. Kelsey and I had to deal with that not too long ago. And I think that I did not put it on as an example later in my slide. So I figured I'd get it out. If anybody was unaware, yes, it was still considered dual relationship. I mean, we recommend most, if you have social media, to kind of keep it a private account of where people can't search you like that. But even if you don't choose that, because obviously we can't make you, you're still not supposed to friend clients or maintain any type of relationship with them outside of work. Melissa, does how we interact with the clients matter?
Yes.
Not dramatic whatsoever.
Are you asking me?
Yeah. And
Yes.
why so?
No, I was
Like in our facility?
I think in any this one would apply. Like, I guess I'm looking for the difference in me and you kind of have a casual relationship. Where if we're in the office, we might kick it and talk a little looser. But
Right.
in the public eye in front of the clients, we're going to put on a different face, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So applying that to your interaction with clients, is there a difference in the way they're going to respond to you if you're casual versus professional?
Absolutely. Yes, there has been. Yes, I completely agree with that. Like if you're a little bit more like lax with maybe how you interact with them in a group setting or whatever, they might be a little bit more disrespectful towards you actually in front of others, I think.
And even misinterpret. And I'm not going to shout out any names. That person, this is a while ago. You might remember it, Melissa, when I was director at inpatient. I remember a client walked up and started rubbing a counselor's shoulders. And it took everything. I took him right in the office immediately because it's not like the counselor warranted that, but something still, I know clients don't just walk up to me and start rubbing my shoulders. So there is something to that with the way you're putting off into the world and the way you're setting your boundaries personally.
Right.
So as a professional helper, you'll be in position of power. And I think it's important we acknowledge that. I know that we got this person-centered training and this new view that we're taking, and all that's great and true, but that power, it still exists. And we still are the we are the helper, we are the professional. And even though we try to work collaboratively and in partnership always, to deny that thing doesn't exist is kind of a disservice. But also on the same note, you got to respect that and kind of nurture it, not abuse it, and not use it in a way that causes any harm. So in most settings, the worker will be thought as the expert. Clients will believe that you have the knowledge and experience to give your opinions authority. In most settings, you will also literally have the authority. You have a title, a place of work, other workers support you, and right to refuse the client access to a service that they need or want. And if we could get into like any disciplinary action or discharges, it's also, there's a power there. I know I think about that every time that we're talking about administrative discharge and like, does it warrant whatever consequences the client may face? I mean, at some element, we got to push that out. We can't even let that influence our decision, but also we want to make sure we're not having emotional knee jerks that could cause someone to lose their kids or go to prison just because essentially they pissed us off in that moment. You know what I mean? That's why I kind of push the behavioral systems and keeping score and keeping track, because it keeps things more objective and not so much opinion based, but actually what's literally going on with the person. So you may also provide a client with access to other service funding or various supports of recognition. All of these factors add up to putting you in a powerful position in relation to your client. Clients will by definition be in need of some support and will often be vulnerable. Even if they are not vulnerable in any other setting, the power imbalance means that they are vulnerable in relation to you and your relationship with them. So what this is about is saying recognize it and respect that. And also that's where kind of what I called Melissa on about the difference in that casualness is about, like, that can get misinterpreted and that can open up doors or just kind of lead to different areas. So it's good to just keep those professional boundaries tight. So as you're in that position of power and control, and this power comes responsibility, you would expect it to be do the following: help and support clients to the best of your ability and ensure that what we does not harm them. Ensure that your actions are based around the needs of the clients wherever possible. Act in a trustworthy and responsible manner in all your dealings with and for clients. Be truthful and honest in your interaction with the clients. I think that one's huge. I mean, I think everybody on here has gotten to know me some. I can be pretty rigid. I am pretty by the book. And yet I still don't really, there's been a couple, but for the most part, clients don't flip on me, don't hate me. Most of them respect me. And I think that genuineness is, I mean, I'm straight up with them. I'm like, this is what's happening. This is why. I explain. Sometimes I over explain. I know it's been a while, but if I got pressed when I was like in the programs more on a full-time basis and client asked for some special treatment, I would tell them no and straight up, because the reason is if I do it for you, I got to do it for everybody. And that opens up doors and they usually would accept it. Respect the client's right as individuals. Ensure that all current potential clients have equal opportunity to access and benefit from services and work for the good of your team and organization that you work for. Forgive my spelling. So professionalism and professional boundaries. Professional boundaries are the set of guidelines, expectations, and rules which set the ethical and standard in the social care environment. They set limits for safe, acceptable, and effective behavior by workers. As human service workers, we should make every effort to respect the power and balance previously mentioned and ensure a patient-centered relationship. Those staff who display one or more of the following behaviors should examine their patient relationship for possible boundary crossings or violations. So I have a list of things that, and I want, as we go through this, if you do something on this list, please don't freak out and think that like, oh my God, I'm gonna get fired on Sunday. That's not what this is about. These are behaviors that if they're consistently done, if they're done in kind of clusters or numerous of them, it might not go any further than those behaviors. However, that's also kind of back to the question I asked Melissa. The behaviors I'm gonna go over are what give the false impression that it's more of casual and intimate relationship like on a personal level than a professional helping one. And that's when it kind of lines get crossed and blurred. So maintaining the professionalism in all cases, that is the goal. So signs of inappropriate behavior that can be subtle at first, but early warning signs should raise an alert. And this is for self or for our coworkers, because I think that's part of the thing too. I mean, we get people from all different walks of life that come work for us, all different education and training levels. So if we get someone just to assume that they know the right ways to interact with clients, I think that we have a responsibility to kind of pull them up. And that doesn't mean that every little thing they do that we got to go run and tell on everybody. But if you see someone kind of, hey, it's been my experience that when you, like the first one, discuss an intimate or personal issue with a patient, it's been my experience that if we're told that we shouldn't like discuss our relationship with our significant other, and if the details of that, it's a kind of self-disclosure problem. I'm talking in a way that you would talk to new staff and kind of just pull them up on that. And this is why, because it sends that kind of wrong message. You know what I mean? Engage in behaviors that could reasonably be interpreted as flirting, keeping secrets with a patient or for a patient. What does that one mean? Because there are some secrets we might not share. I don't want to say secrets, but like some on history. Someone took their mic off. Who was it? All right. So by secrets, who is it?
No, I can talk.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we might not share everything about a client's trauma history if not everyone needs to know that, but we wouldn't keep a secret about them doing something they shouldn't in the program.
Perfect example, Schuster. That's what I was going for. Obviously, I mean, we got someone in our program, and maybe as their counselor, we found out that, I'm just going off the top of the head, their sexual abuser passed away or something like that, or got out of prison even, and they're having a rough day in the community. So at that time, I might want to disclose that to my team and just to make people aware. However, as a whole, like what Kelsey said, the intimate details of history, past trauma, no, that's not what we're posting all over Teams. The best way I can put that one, I think when we report to legals, I am about reporting to legals. I am about working with legals. However, our reports are not anything to do with anything in that. Our reports are performance-based. They're attending groups, screens are negative or positive, whatever the case. We're not getting into all that with the legals. We're just reporting the facts. And I think it's the same between us for the most part. A little bit more enmeshed because like in the example, especially in our settings, if it's something that's causing stuff out there that we need to be aware of course we got to share. But for the most part, we're going to keep that therapeutic alliance and relationship. However, contrast that to, you know, someone has a cell phone in their room. You got wind that they snuck out, and when you asked them, they didn't deny it, but they asked you not to tell on them. Those are keeping secrets. Those are the harmful ones. You know what I mean? Believing that you are the only one who truly understands or can help the patient. Yeah, that's a rough one because I've seen this in many years of practice. At times this can happen. And if you find yourself so emotionally involved, you believe no one else gets that client but you're probably in a boundary violation. Spending more time than necessary with a particular patient. I know I've talked to a lot of you as I've trained you. I know when I go through the charts, that's kind of an indicator for me. I mean, there are going to be times that we might be working through someone. Like, for example, our sessions are typically 30 minutes. There's going to be times that we go over 10 minutes. It's not a big deal. There's going to be times that maybe that client's going through something, you kept them for an hour. But if I'm doing my chart audits, and Kelsey, I'm just going to pick on you because you're safe. And I see that Kelsey meets with this one client or maybe even two, and they are a potential bias that I can see, like maybe Kelsey has a bias for males, and every session with them is 120 minutes, 150 minutes. That suggests to me that that's something I need to follow up with Kelsey on, because that's a potential boundary issue. Now, if Kelsey's like spending 120 minutes with all her clients, I'm still going to follow her up and ask her why the hell she's wasting all that time. But when you're getting to the crosses and violations, it's more a particular population group or particular person that you're going to see that in. And you guys understand why that's a problem, because it's a form of specialty treatment and favoritism when you're doing that. I am huge on that. I'm not, and anybody's working with me, hands-on clients see me, I am huge on that. I am not doing for one that I'm not doing for all. I'm big on that. I mean, obviously there's going to always be a little bit of gray area and severance. I'm talking no holistically. Speaking poorly about colleagues of your employment setting with the patient and or family. Schuster and I were just talking about this morning. When I got to Loyola, this was so common, it used to disgust me. I mean, like I would walk into like a staff member just straight up gossiping and bashing their colleagues with a client. I mean, I'm a realist. I know that we all don't like each other. I know that sometimes that we piss each other off. Discussing that with a client ever is so out of bounds. It is unbelievable. You know what I mean? Because you are potentially on their side of the street. Now, that's a hard one, because how often do we get someone's going to come to me and be like, oh, Kelsey just going tell me this, and then I don't like her, and she did this to me and this, and I'm listening because I have to. I'm ethically, I mean, if Kelsey Descone's in her office slapping this client around, I need to hear that. You know what I mean? But like really, most times it's not that. And for me to jump on that, because I know Kelsey and I respect Kelsey and I know she's not going to do anything harmful. So really, it could be this client's trying to manipulate. It could be perception based. It could have just be Kelsey had a bad moment and kind of just might have been a little like blunt to them, but wasn't like, you piece of garbage addict or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to jump on that coin. However, you want to listen to the client because we're person centered. So the best way I try to tell people about this, like, it's a knack, it's a skill. It is validating the client and their feelings, but not validating the event or what they're saying. You guys get what I'm saying by that? Does anybody need clear? Because I'll try. I can't explain it unless you're really in it. So I think I'm capturing well, but you're listening, you're saying, hey, I can understand if that happened, I can understand how that would feel that way. And I might even throw in, I've worked with Kelsey a long time and I know she's not gonna, that wasn't her intention. You might have just caught her in a bad moment. I do apologize, but maybe you should go talk to her and follow up and let her know how you're feeling, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Putting it on that, jumping on their side and start bashing one each other. I hope everybody on here knows how out of bounds that is. It kind of goes into the dysfunctional family stuff. And in many ways we are like, I know I've made the comparison before, but at work, that is, your team is kind of your work family. And then that goes into the dyads and the triads and the splitting against each other and forming allies to kind of, because you got to ask your motivation. If I'm in there bashing another one of my colleagues with a client, what is my motivation? You know what I mean? Showing favoritism. Does everybody know what favoritism is? Going above and beyond, doing some extra things that you would never do for another client. I'm only we've been interviewing. I picked out one about $50. That's kind of my test. I ask people in the interviews if they'll give me $50 because it lets me know if they have boundary issues. If you were given $50, that would be a form of favoritism. You know what I mean? So kind of just outside of treatment, outside of program, and what you wouldn't do for another client. Meeting a patient and setting besides those provided patient care or one you're not at work at. That one's not big with us because the clients live where we work. But in the outpatient setting, or if you're ever doing community work or like that, I mean, there's some things obviously that if it involves your job, if you're a peer and you're doing home visits, of course, that's appropriate. If you're a peer and you're going out to the movies or you're just hanging out on your free time, and that's where it comes into the crossing. You guys understand? Or counts any, I didn't mean to pick on you guys, peers, any staff. It's just you guys do more community work. But anything like that. Patient can also demonstrate signs of over-involvement by asking questions about particular staff or seeking personal information. This one I think is huge in our settings. How many of us have had clients come to us and try to get information on other staff? Ask questions, ask personal questions, professional, almost like a feeling out for us. I'm sure we've all seen it, you know what I mean? As this occurs, staff should request assistance from the supervisor on that one. Other inappropriate signs, you have received gifts from a patient. I think the rule is $10, and even still, it's got to be for a reason. Clients graduate and gets you like a card, that's okay. Client buys you a dozen roses, you're out of bounds if you take it like that. I know that I've always been told it's good, like in them cases, say if it was flowers, thank them and just not to be rude, but let them know right then that you're taking it on behalf of the agency and putting them in a central place. So they're for everybody. That'd be one way to deal with it. You can refuse. I mean, they buy you a gold necklace. You better say you can't take that. Kelsey, I see you smile. So there is differences and there's variances that, you know, and it's kind of, there's a common sense thing, but we know if you're communicating the wrong thing if you accept it. You know what I mean? If it's a personal and it's like an intimate gift, you know what I mean? You speak to the patient about your own professional needs or inability. So like that one, you're kind of complaining to the client, no one gets you and you're better than this place and you're gonna, let's say, like, you can feel that way, you're entitled to feel that way. I mean, I know that there's days we all feel that way, but you can't talk to the clients about that kind of stuff. You talk to patients' families about things that are out of scope of your practice. Client calls up or family member calls up and maybe you're a tech and you're giving out mental health diagnoses or your impression. And it's not that your opinion might not be valid, but you're not the one to make those calls. And if it's not charted or if it's not in there like that, that's what that's talking about. You give a patient personal contact information or money. You frequently think of a patient when you're away from work. You spend free time with the patient. You select to report a patient's behavior, negative or positive. This one could be internally for with our support plans and support indicators that also can apply to externals. I mean, accountability is part of what we're doing here. And it's again, I'll use legal as an example because I did earlier. I report to legals. I'm not giving my clinical impressions. I'm not giving client history or trauma history, but also I'm not gonna, if the client left, I'm not gonna not report that. If I work in an outpatient setting and the client hasn't been to groups in 2 weeks, I'm not gonna not report that. And we're not gonna cover for the clients. I mean, there's so much that we are here for them to help, but on the real life is we have to live lives on life's terms, and that's what we're teaching. So whatever that situation, whatever consequences, those are the client's lane, and it's not us on us to, it would be a violation or crossing for us to interfere with that, negative or positive. You know what I'm saying? Like the natural occurrences of life, we can't really pretty much interfere with that much. And if you're covering up negatives, it's probably definitely a boundary area, because why are you doing that? Why are you lying and jeopardizing career, reputation, credentialing for that? You know what I'm saying? You swapped assignments to work with a particular patient for personal reasons. By assignments, that means like you get someone that maybe you have potential bias, or maybe you didn't know. We're talking about boundary violations, so we'll go all in, and maybe it's a cousin and you didn't disclose it to your supervisor that you know, but I switch with Kelsey so I can get that client on my caseload. That would be what that looks like. So a breach of boundaries is characterized by excessive personal disclosure by staff, secrecy, or even a reversal of roles. This can cause distress for the patient, which may not be recognized or be felt by the patient until harmful consequences occur. The health and well-being of the patient is paramount. Patient safety is the first priority. What are the consequences of unhealthy boundaries and boundary crossing? Patients are extremely vulnerable because they trust us as their healthcare providers. They come to us in times of need, presented with physical and emotional distress. When professional boundaries are violated or inappropriately crossed, it causes the provider-patient relationship to become untrustworthy, ambiguous, and possibly unethical. And it's non-existence then. I mean, once we cross that line and we're on a personal level with them and we're all emotionally involved and we're covering up, or maybe even worse, sexual misconduct comes into play, or we've had staff members leave to be in romantic relationships. And while that's that individual, that also kind of impacts the treatment agency as a whole, because it's like that blurred line does not help anything. If we're going to be effective in what we do, those lines need to be clear, what we're here and what we're here to do. You know what I mean? So boundary violations can discourage patients from seeking help in the future, precipitate exacerbation of psychiatric disorder, and promote dependence. If you see other healthcare providers violating professional boundaries, you do not help the patient or professional by ignoring the issues. Take the time to mentor less experienced staff. I got into that earlier on when we started talking. I mean, just to assume that even someone that went to college, I mean, it's different. You hear about it in a class and you don't think about it for 2 semesters. When you start your first job in the field, that's the hard part of our job. We have to be so personal and caring, but on the same note, maintain these professionalism and our boundaries and keep them firm. So someone new to our setting, and whether trained or not, that can feel unnatural, because usually when we're trying to show compassion and care, we show that through our feelings and how, you know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying is, so it's hard to, I get to see how it's hard to, not hard, how it goes against kind of our nature to do that, but that's the professional part, learning that skill to be able to shut that off. You know what I mean? If the violation was repeated even from the experienced staff, I mean, you got to report this stuff. I put see something, say something in here. For crossings of minor violations, don't be afraid to talk to one another. If you see something off and make them aware, is all right. So working together and learn from each other, that's how we get better. And you guys know I all preach that. So we got new staff, or we got someone that might have slipped. I think there's nothing wrong. Has anybody been called out by a peer or colleague? And I don't take it personal. I mean, there's some of you on this meeting, I thank you for saving my ass when I do stupid shit. You know what I mean? Like, really, you'd be like, hey, I think you're not seeing this part of it. So I'm assuming that all of us have at least some of those trust relationships with people. And if it's a new staff, every one of us, I think, no, the better we train new staff, the quicker they get to be effective members of our team and the easier our job gets. So I hope that we all take an active role in that. See something, say something. Though, for the serious violations, we can't ignore it. And there are cues and warning signs. I can say that, I mean, Kelsey, you've been riding with me since residential. For any major like Justice Center report that was founded, was there not hints or cues that we seen it coming? I remember the first one we had with the relationship on the overnight staff. I mean, I wrote that person up as their team lead and had a couple of discussions with them. You know what I mean? I didn't know all that was going on, but there's definitely cues. Earlier on, I mentioned that the counselor that got a back rub by a client, and it wasn't that they asked for the back rub, the client just felt that comfortable to do it. I would also say that actually that same staff member went out with the Justice Center report too. So it's like, we need to recognize those behaviors I mentioned might look like benign and standing alone might not seem no big deal, but when you're seeing them frequenting and you're seeing a bunch of them, I know that's what flags me. And again, we don't always know, so, and we don't want to assume the worst, but we can't ignore it neither. So I think speaking up, and if it's on a level that makes you uncomfortable that you're seriously concerned, talk to your supervisor, reach out to me, whoever it might be. And like,
I actually had a situation like this. The person was let go, but like what had happened is there was a client that was here and the client had left, and probably like a week later, one of the staff members received a piece of mail. And so when I gave it to him, I was kind of like, hi, this came for you. And it was just kind of odd, the whole situation. And I'm going to find out like that staff member had like received a gift from that client, but tried to play it off and like hide it actually. And it was just me and another staff member around. And I will tell you what, it really bothered me, because I had an awful dream that night about that situation and how it how it affected me. So I ended up reporting it to my supervisor, and that person was let go, but they had a lot of boundary issues to begin with, like bringing in stuff constantly for all of the clients, but just constantly bringing in things for them, like things that us as a program, we can get. And I tried to like explain that in the beginning, like we can get these things, you don't have to bring them in. Well, no, I'm just doing it, and so like there was issues all the way along, but that was like,
that must have been when I wasn't there, because that's one thing.
you were not there. You were not
I'm
here.
big on that. We don't give the clients anything. If we have this need to feel that we got to bring in like special gifts and special desserts and be the client's best friend, like we need to look at that. And I think I know who you're talking about, Melissa, because I think I came shortly after, and I think I might have been the supervisor you reported, and handle it. I take it serious, because in our settings especially, I mean, these things are important in outpatient, these are important in any healthcare human service. In our setting where we all live together, not only I think all of us at this point know that our environments are also part of our treatment. So when we got shit like that going on, it impacts not just that client, but the community members, because they gossip and they know, and they are watching us like we are days of our lives. You know what I mean? Like we are the rec and entertainment in most cases. So when shit's going on like that, not only is it influencing the one, but it's kind of like chipping away at our integrity and our clinical care as a whole. You know what I mean? So I am big on that one. And yeah, there can be none of that. Melissa's spot on. I mean, if we want to do something special for the clients, all that really takes is a discussion between the supervisors and the team. And if we can do that, we can do that. If we want to make someone a birthday cake, we just need to like whip it up. We don't need to go out and purchase Wegmans cheesecake for everybody. I mean, we can talk to our cooks or work with our cook teams, and as a whole, the gifts and special things like that go to the whole population from the whole program only, is the best way I can put it. Does that make sense to everybody? It can't come from individuals. I know that in our programs a lot, we'll do that with donations. You can't come in and give a client, one specific client, all your clothes that you're throwing away, even though it's a donation. However, you can talk to your supervisor, and if they're cool with it, you can donate them anonymously to the program as a whole. You guys see that difference there and why it matters? Most importantly, though, the takeaway with home is talk about these things. I mean, we only improve. Sometimes so much of it is like, we might not even be aware. It might seem natural. Maybe we're usually chatty, and that's kind of how we like make connections with people. It doesn't mean that we're a bad person. It just might take some of us more seasoned and experienced people to point to like, that's not necessarily appropriate in this setting. You know what I mean? How do I maintain healthy professional boundaries? When avoiding boundary violations in healthcare, the best thing you do is remain mentally healthy yourself. Take time to take care of yourself and your family. If you are feeling vulnerable with a specific situation or patient, do not be afraid to ask a peer or manager for help. I fundamentally believe this. I have been in some hellholes. I have been, Layola's going to always hold the cake, and some crazy toxic where everything is off the rails and there is nothing left but insanity. You know what I'm saying? And I do believe it starts somewhere, and that's where it starts. When we're not taking care of ourselves, when our programs become toxic, when we're backbiting and bashing and little passive aggressive things. And don't get me wrong, we're human beings, and part of that, there's going to be a level that always exists. I accepted that long, but the healthier we are, the healthier treatment we give. So self-care and kind of care of our team, to be mindful and work towards that's important. To maintain professional boundaries, follow these guidelines. Avoid caring for family, friends, and people whom you do business. So that's the dual relationship part. If you know them, dual relationship, me and Kelsey were talking about Facebook, that's after they leave. Coming in, if you already have those relationships with, that's why you're supposed to let your supervisor know. A casual encounter, like it's your second cousin's friend that you haven't seen in 10 years, that's usually more, hey, do you mind if I'm involved? They say, no, you're cool with that, we can go ahead. However, if it's your cousin that you've seen last week at a family gathering, we're going to block you from the chart and you're not going to do any work with them. Do not use offensive language, make sexual comments or jokes. That goes back to when I started out talking with Melissa, that's that casual part. I mean, if we're sending the wrong message, if we're talking, I mean, some of us might get a little raunchy together behind in the closed doors in office and say some uncolorful things. We should not be interacting with clients that way. Use touch correctly or appropriately. I am huge on this one. I think Sebastian's, he's still at Olean. He made me laugh with Tanya. Was anybody out there that time Tanya asked me for a hug and I told her no and he started laughing? I think he thought it was something else. That's just because I'm not hugging anybody. You know what I mean? I'll give a client a hug if it's their last session and I'm not going to see them again and they're saying goodbye. I give them a quick little, other than that, we do not touch. There should be no reasons clients touching us or we're touching them. Do not give or accept gifts, loans, money, or other valuables from patients. Do not visit or spend extra time with a person that is not part of your assignment. Do not share personal or financial information with the person. Maintain a courteous and respectful attitude with patients all equally. That's all I got for the presentation. Anybody got anything they want to talk about? Questions, elaborations, something I might have missed that they're thinking about? Is it because we're recording? All right, that's all I got. I'm going to send out the PowerPoint, a link to this video for people that didn't attend. And I also have like a flyer, basically the two things I use to make the PowerPoint from. One of them is this book from a social worker about boundaries that I found a free PDF on. I think it'd be useful to skim through at least. And the other one's like a 2-page paper that you'll recognize. I copied and pasted a few of them things right out of it into the slides. So I'll send that as soon as we're off. Everybody's good? If you're good, I'm good. Helpful information? All right. I will see you all next week.